So first of all, I would like to thank you for being here and getting interested in that new project that we are announcing today officially in India. Just to give a very short introduction, I would like to say it's to give a big thank to the India design team and Misha here, because it's actually the third time I'm being invited to speak in one of your events, and every time it's been around craft and the Indo-French relationship. And today it's also the subject, but we are releasing a new chapter, I would say, of that conversation, which is about the show that we are organizing in Paris. So I would like to let you know a bit about this exhibition, which is, as I already said earlier, for those of you who have got like a bit of information about it, it's a community project. We are bringing in a lot of partners, either from France or from India, which is very important for us because we wouldn't be able to do that without the right people. And two of the most proeminent people from that community, if I can say, are standing next to me today. So you have Loïc, of course, and Loïc is representing today the host institution of the project. And then you have Mayank, of course, and Mayank is a curatorial advisor of the project. So we will go one after the other in giving you a context about the place of the exhibition and also more about the curatorial approach. So maybe I leave the floor to you first to explain a bit what is Mobilier National for those of you who don't know, and I guess it's a lot of you. So let's go.
In a few words, it's always a challenge to present the French national manufacture, and we were speaking about it with Mayank this morning. It's a challenge because it's a very unique institution, very French maybe, in a sense that we are a very old institution founded by Louis XIV 4 centuries ago, and we are like a mixed concept between manufactories and museum, and we are like an incarnation of this constant dialogue between heritage and contemporary creation. Basically, we are a public institution, non-profit institution under the authority of the French Ministry of Culture, and we are dedicated for 4 centuries to promote the decorative art, the design and the craftsmanship in the field of decorative art, in textile, in furniture and in ceramic. We have mainly 6 missions. The first one is, of course, education and training, because we are conscious that formation and transmission are the key words for the future of craftsmanship, and we have a school center to train artisans. The second mission is, of course, research and innovation, and we have a laboratory for innovation in the field of design and craftsmanship to keep the craftsmanship in the modernity, in the sense that we are conscious that savoir-faire can't be in a bubble, like protected of the rest of the society, and it's important for artisans to innovate with the time and the century. The third mission, I think it's maybe the most important of the institution, is the artistic creation. And maybe Kunal, which is just there, is like a good example of our mission to preserve the dialogue between artists and artisans. And we are developing this conversation and constant conversation between immaterial heritage and contemporary artists. The conservation of our heritage, material heritage, is very important. We are not just a museum, but we have an incredible collection of textile and furniture pieces. And one particularity is that this collection can be used to create decor. And it's not a museum collection, it's a very alive collection, which can be used in a lot of exhibition, but also for the scenograph and curators. And I think it's a very important aspect of our institution. And the last one is maybe our role and our mission to preserve and to promote the work of gallery, artisans, company in the private sector. And we are a public institution, but very dedicated to develop the economical field in the artisan and artistic system. Basically, we have 3 fields of intervention. The first one is furniture, with le Mobilier National, the national furniture. And our mission, our principal mission, the mission created by Louis XIV, is to furnish the official places of the French Republic. You have, for example, just there the office of the Ministry of Culture, by realization by Pierre Paulin. And it's the original mission of the institution to furnish all the palace and the official spot of the Republic. The other one is the restoration, of course, and we have, I think, the excellency in France in terms of restoration workshop in textile, for carpet and tapestry, but also in bronzes to restore our creation. And the last one in the field of furniture is a research and creation workshop. And I think it's maybe the more important because it's the constant dialogue we have with the young generation of designer. And we have an atelier of recherche et création, research and creation workshop, dedicated to develop the prototype imagined by designer and young designer. Not only French designer, also international designer, and we have a lot of residencies with international designer, maybe tomorrow with Indian designer, to offer them a space to invent, to develop, to imagine new form of prototype. And you have them, for example, babies created in the Atelier de Recherche et Création. This one, for example, is a group of Korean and French creators. This one is Jean Nouvel for the Louvre Abu Dhabi, a chandelier. And you have like very iconic pieces like the chair of Pierre Paulin or this part of the desk, part of André Putman collection. This one is a new one from Noé Duchefour-Laurence, and we have also a mission to furnish public institutions, like, for example, public library of schools or maybe hospitals, and we are collaborating with designers to imagine the furniture of all the French public institutions. The second field is textile, and we have a workshop all over the territory in France. Maybe the more famous is Gobelins tapestry in Paris. And the idea of the tapestry is to translate some of the painting and the creation of artists in the wood pieces. And for us, it is very interesting, but because the more important moment is not the creation of the painting by the artist, is all the process of the translation of the painting in the tapestry pieces. And we collaborate by the past with all the main artists, and Picasso, of course, Matisse, Miro, Zhao Wuki, Le Corbusier, Vasarely, and a lot we will find in the exhibition. But so many great names have collaborated with the Mobilier National, and the idea is the constant dialogue between the artists who imagine the carton, the original pieces, and the artisan will realize this piece in a wood piece, in a wool piece. This is an example, for example, of a tapestry of Henri Matisse. And maybe the last field of intervention we have is in the field of ceramic. And please, you are all more than welcome in the manufacture of Sèvres and the museum and the Sèvres Museum to see maybe the excellence of the ceramic creation in the dialogue we have with international artists and this very French savoir-faire, which is ceramic. Just a few words about one of our actuality, and we are very proud and happy to launch here in Mumbai for India Design the magazine Savoir-faire. And thanks a lot, Misha, to give us the opportunity to present here in India Design this magazine, which is an annual and English language magazine to present the French savoir-faire, but not only in a French point of view. I think it's a good opportunity to see and to present all the collaboration, French national manufactories, and all the private manufactories, and of course, luxury manufactories like big group have in collaboration, like in dialogue and residencies and exhibition and project we can develop in the cultural field of decorative arts. So this is the new magazine we have, and we are very proud to present it here in Mumbai for India Design.
Thank you very much. So I guess you've understood now why it makes sense to welcome an exhibition about the Indo-French relationship in textile in such a place, because this is one of the iconic places in India where they are still actually producing large tapestries and fabric at a very high level of craft and woven work. So that is why it makes sense for us to really bring the show at the Gobelin Gallery, which is a 2-floor space that is in the Art of Paris and which is in the same campus actually where the workshops are. So in India, where I think you have actually no boundaries between the people who are making and the textile work itself, it's all blended into a kind of everyday life. Whereas in Europe, you have more distance nowadays between the finished product, the finished fabric, and the people who are making it. It's also a way, and what Mobilier National, Manufacture National are doing, is to recreate that narrative between the people who are making and the final work, which we have lost a bit in Europe. And that was one of the first starting point also of our discussion with Mayank, who I'm going to leave the floor now to. But just before that, I wanted to give a bit of context on why I came to see you in the first place, to ask you to come on board with us on this project. So for you to know, as it was mentioned in the introduction, Mayank was supported by the French Embassy in 2016 and 17 to do an extensive research trip in France about the Indian textile pieces that we have in our public collections. And actually, there are a lot, so I think you had a lot of work to do back in these days. So it was very natural for us to give him like a way of putting out also this work, this research, and this connection with friends that you had built into this project, into this curatorial project, which is also a challenge for many reasons. But I think you understand, if you're been in India and interested in textile shows, that Mayank has become quite a reference in that field. In like the 18 past months, I cannot even count or list the number of shows you curated on that subject in the country. I'm sure you have seen or you have heard of some of them. And as project manager of all of this, it was very important for us to embody the Indo-French dialogue of the project into an Indo-French duo. leading the project. So Mayank is curatorial advisor, as I said, and on the other end, Christian Louboutin is the artistic director of the show. And the idea is really that through the two of you and the conversation that you have developed, we are showing that conversation alive to the audience in Paris. So I would like you to tell us a bit more about how you approached the request in the first place, and if you can also go from the roots of the Indo-French tradition and dialogue on textile to what is the modern translation of it today. And we have like already a few pictures of selected work that we are going to present in the show, and we are really happy to share them with you today.
Thank you so much. Firstly, to ID. I've had the great privilege and pleasure to observe the development from its seed and to see that it's now become a two-city event. Congratulations to the team of ID. We know that staging anything of this kind in this country to nurture this kind of ecosystem is extremely difficult and challenging. And to do it with this kind of precision, efficiency, but also love and care is something that I think really needs to be applauded. So it's a pleasure to be in this very exciting context. A little before I share the actualities and some details of how one has sort of started thinking about this exhibition and some of the components of it, I do want to highlight that this kind of a project is fitted within much bigger global conversations. Of course, today India and France share a very special relationship over the handmade, but it is also at several levels, both diplomatically, politically, commercially, economically, in terms of film, in terms of entertainment, media, in terms of culture, one of the most significant diplomatic relationships that we have seen emerge in the late 20th to the early 21st century. So certainly this exhibition, as the first such exhibition on Indian textiles that France is going to see in the last 40 years, is fitted within this very exciting and very, very significant moment that India and France are actually experiencing and sharing. Within that, I want to highlight there is, of course, a very important role that handmade plays. At a time that the world is completely digitized, at a time that we are looking at our own avatars on the screens of the phones that we see, at a time that there's this great anxiety as well as opportunity that is emerging from technologies like AI, to actually go and put a belief into what is made by hand, what is overseen through this exciting coming together of the heart, the mind, the hand together is a very bold act. And that both these countries give it the kind of importance has to be very, very importantly acknowledged within this broader conversation. Within that, textiles, which is often seen as something very aesthetic, needs to be emphasized. To do anything with textiles today is also very radical. Why? Because as a means, textiles are always at the agency of something else. Architects and interior designers use it as a means to express themselves. Fashion designers use it as a means to sculpt, images that they come up with. Wherever you look at, textiles are always in some ways at the mercy of other agents and other creative practitioners. So within that, to establish through an entire dedicated exhibition, the importance of textiles is to also establish the importance of its sovereignty as an artistic medium, as something that speaks for itself. It is not just a means for somebody else's artistic expression. So I think that sovereignty of textiles is really what is at the heart of this exhibition, and therefore the title Textile Matters becomes really important because textile matters and matters of textiles are extremely important today. As someone who's been the curator or the curatorial advisor to this project, of course, I've had the immense pleasure to work with a very diverse team. And there is other than, in addition to the background of my relationship with Indo-French textile research, is a project that actually left completely unrealized in 2017. So I had the pleasure to be at the Mobilier National and to actually curate an entire exhibition of his tapestries that in 2017 we were going to bring to Jaipur, and we were going to actually present at the Jawahar Kala Kendra, the iconic Charles Correa building. For several reasons, it could not be staged. But what I think it started making me think really, and which is really the genesis of what I'm going to talk about next, is really that when we think about France, we think about it as a European country, we think about it as holding certain very, pivotal values within the European space in a fast-changing world, among which is the importance of couture, of art, of film, and various forms of culture. But the idea of France itself is so plural. The idea, what I saw through the collection at the Mobilier National, was that the kind of artists that its collection holds, the kind of people it's able to support, itself comes from such a various kind of diverse background. So the idea, it gave me a chance to think about the idea of French identity itself as something which is very, very dynamic, plural, and layered. And I think that matches very excitingly with the kind of pluralism, diversity that we also see in India. So with that as the sort of heart, we've looked at the exhibition through certain interesting projects. We've looked at it through certain collaborations. It was very important for me for an exhibition that's largely premising the contemporary collaborations to also be able to remind ourselves of the deep history of the connections between India and France. So what you see here today, of course, it's a reimagination of the famous Tree of Life or Palampur from the House of Kandadu. So very great to have Alexi and Harsh here, who present this wonderful new project which has been launched. From the 17th century onwards, whether it was hand-painted, block-printed textiles from India that we know as the Tree of Life, the Palampurs, or the chins, whether it was the hand-spun, hand-woven cotton muslin from Bengal, or later the paisley, the Kashmir shawl, which then transforms into the French or the Scottish paisley, elements from India and what I call Indo-French textile conversations over 200-300 years actually fundamentally shaped and revolutionized French interiors and French fashion. So that's going to be one sort of introduction. Of course, the exhibition itself was announced at the presidential visit of President Macron. So it's a very prestigious exhibition from a diplomatic point of view. And it's going to look at also the kind of work that has emerged out of the Villa Swagatam residency, which is a very pioneering series of residencies which has been initiated by the French Institute in India to invite designers and artists and karigars and craftspeople from India to work with French institutions and organizations and communities, and likewise vice versa. Very exciting to collaborate with Christian Louboutin for my very academic, narrative-based exhibition. Some of you may have seen them. It was actually quite novel and exciting to have a very visual perspective on that. So actually, at a point where two countries share not the same language entirely, how do we stage visual conversations? How do works speak to each other? So that collaboration in translating many of these kinds of narrative-based ideas into like very exacting visual cues was something that has emerged very excitedly through the collaboration. Of course, here we're looking at very novel block printing that has emerged out of the Villa Swagatam residency. We're including tapestries that have been designed by Corbusier at the Mobilier National. Of course, with India, all of us know, especially in the context of a very special architecture and interior-based platform like this, that Corbusier's legacy is something that we're constantly going back to in India. He designed Chandigarh, some incredible private homes and buildings in Ahmedabad. To actually be able to also bring up these kinds of conversations over a long period of time takes us from the earlier historical background into the early decades of post-independence India and what we call the modern period. it was a big revelation for me when I was doing the research at the Mobilier National to actually find the work of Vishwanathan. Vishwanathan is an artist who was founder of the iconic Cholamandal village of arts in Chennai, earlier Madras in Tamil Nadu. And for 60 years, he's made France his home. And he's the only Indian living modern and contemporary artist represented in the collection of the Mobilier National. And he's the only artist whose work, oil on canvas work, actually has been transformed into an incredible tapestry. So we have the privilege of showing his work as well as to welcome him. Very, very interesting, conversations in the same way that historically a lot of Indian textiles and design and aesthetics influenced these Indo-French forms that we've talked about as muslin or the paisley or the chintz. Likewise, the coming of French missionaries to India across the country also brought in with them forms of embroidery, convent embroidery, brought in forms of lace making. So to draw upon that connection, also of how India and the very idea of Indian aesthetics and textiles have also been very syncretically expressed through a taking of those kinds of elements from France. We have some beautiful historical lace from the collection of Mobilier National, which we are then responding with contemporary works that look at the idea of lace and lace making. On the right, you see here Somakshi Singh, very well-known Indian contemporary artist who works with lace-like forms, a language that she's developed. So these are the ways in which we're sort of creating conversations between the historical and the contemporary. We also have the chance to include the work of Lakshmi Madhavan, who works with the Kerala Pat, a very fine muslin-based brocade tradition in the south of India, which she totally transforms into a way of talking about feminism, of identity, of changing dynamics of textile and its practitioners in the 21st century. We have the chance also to show not only her textile-based work, but some of her installation work, which is represented through the tools of making as a way to actually speak to an audience in Paris of what goes into the making of textiles. Very important ingredient from the beginning for us has been that whether it's being wrapped in beautiful fabric when you're a child, when you're born, or at the time that you get married, or very important rites of passage in your life, or also at the time of death where you're covered in fabric as shrouds. So at any point in our life, we're constantly looking at fabric as performing. So the idea of actually the exhibition capturing that has been quite important, to actually embody the idea of the performative, the idea of how it is constantly three-dimensional and not quite as flat as often, we see it in exhibitions typically. So with that kind of performative aspect, we really, as a way to start summarizing, we move through an exhibition that will introduce you to some of these historical milestones and markers that brings us into firmly the 20th century and the modern period, which really begins the formal diplomatic channels between the two countries. And then we move into a very contemporary space and period. Each of the section is quite distinct. We move from the beautiful whites of chikankari embroidery, of lace making, into the gossamer texture-based quality of cloth, into the prints and the world of motifs and patterns through the chintz and paisley. We then move into an exciting section on brocades. Lyon is a very important brocade center, the preeminent center for silk and metallic brocade production in France. Few of us have actually investigated that the jacquard, which was invented in Lyon, actually revolutionized Indian brocade making. There is no brocade center in the country which doesn't use the jacquard today. And that actually comes in the 19th century from Lyon to Varanasi. Like Lyon, Varanasi is our preeminent brocade center of the country, among, of course, other brocade centers. So in the brocade section, we're actually looking at this give and take, and especially from the 20th century, early 20th century, there we see a lot of influence of movements such as the Art Nouveau and Art Deco on the brocades of Varanasi. So that's sort of, we then move into a very exciting installation, which is being conceived by Sanjay Garg from Mango, where we're going to celebrate the drape. And taking that idea of the sari and drape, we then make a segue into a section on couture, where we have the chance to look at not just contemporary ways in which couture houses in France have looked at India, but how brands like Chanel, Dior, and YSL in the past have actually looked at the Indian drape itself. So with that installation on the drape, we then segue into a firm section on couture, where we also have a conversation between French couture houses that have had a conversation with India over a very sustained and long period, but also Rahul Mishra, Gaurav Gupta, and Manish Arora, all of whom who've been part of the French Couture Week, the couture ecology in France. And using that idea of the body as fashion, we then move into a section where we look at non-woven textiles as sculpture, that actually looks at the body itself and how it manifests as a form of social commentary, of political dialogue, and to start looking at the idea of visual arts and sculpture of textiles. We have the great opportunity there to present a very, very exciting practice, that of Jeanne Visserel, one of France's most exciting textile voices today. We have the opportunity there to also then present some sort of irreverent conversations. We will have textiles from the Northeast, Naga shawls. So to also make a comment about how what we look at typically as visual arts is not just a subject of what is being shown today in galleries today, but is part of also community expression. So the idea of art becomes far more expansive than is often sort of understood. And from there on, we move into a firm section for an institution that has done such incredible work to preserve the tapestry. We have a firm section on tapestries. We're showing Sheila Hicks, one of France's most exciting fiber artists, in conversation with India's Monica Correa. That's also the section where we're going to have Corbusier's tapestry in conversation with Vishwanathan's tapestries. The entire staging of the conclusion there, within which we're showing the tapestries, huge architectural tapestries that talk about the aspect of textiles as built environment, is staged in a very exciting room conceived by Kristen Louboutin, that of indigo. So we know that indigo was actually, the denim indigo was actually, denim comes from the Nîmes, a small weaving center in France. And France develops the idea of denim using indigo, Indian indigo, as a very fundamental kind of element. And then today, India is the largest manufacturer of denim. So just to give you a sense of these kinds of historical touch points, we moved through 400 years, 4 centuries of this conversation, showing the different ways in which two cultures that are so alike and that are so different can actually forge a commendable, and that are so different can actually forge a commendable and very exciting present and future partnership. With that, I'll hand the mic back to Amandine to perhaps share a little more about the Villa Swagatam residency and to present further questions and remarks. Thank you so much.
I hope you all want to come now. So put the 3rd of December on your calendar. It's the opening date. We're all waiting for you. Thank you for this brilliant introduction and first virtual visit of the show, I can say. Congrats. I just wanted to to finish on Villa Swagatam, because Mayank has taken us on a journey of 400 years, you just said. And what is the contemporary translation of that? For us, it's really much embodied in that conversation that we have started to create now 2 years ago. You are seeing on the screen 2 works in the making of our residents who are going to be displayed in the exhibition, actually. So you have Elvira, who is drawing in the studio with Jaipur rugs in Jaipur, the first sketches of what would become the carpet that she's making for the exhibition with Jaipur rugs, who is also exhibiting today in the show. So when I'm saying these kind of collaborations are very much alive, they are with Indian partners who are also trying to tell something new, I think, about the textile creation. And I thank all of them for trusting us also and welcoming these people in a very nice environment of creation. The other one that you see there is from Antonin Mongin. Antonin is a French designer who has been specialized in hair fabric. He's weaving hair. It's his specialty. It's very technical. He has been developing it for some years now. And when we invited him with Vastrakala in Chennai with Jean-François Lesage and Malavika to experiment this medium with the embroidery technique, he came with this idea of reinterpreting the Schiaparelli veil that you see on that picture, which is an iconic piece that was embroidered by the grandparents of Jean-François Lesage, the actual, the current mentor also of that residency. So there's a very strong history behind this, and they've been embroidering the hair of the Tirupati temple because Antonin is researching a lot about also the meaning of that donation and that rite in India. So these are very strong projects, and we'll be staging them for the first time in Paris, and they are coming straight away from India. So, and I hope we can show them also in India later on, because what is being made there should be also accessible to the Indian audience at some point. So it's something we are very much aware of. Another work, I go very quickly, embroidery work by Pauline Guerrier was done with Kalat Institute in Lucknow and block print work. She's been experimenting both techniques with the craftsmen of Kalat Institute, so wonderful work. We see another work by Victoire de Brandt, who was from our first batch, and we see Kunal, who is here, and who was the first resident at Mobilier National last year, and he got that chance to explore the collection, to get a very strong and deep inspiration immersion, I would say. And this year we are welcoming in a few weeks Carola, who is also here. Thank you, Carola, for joining us. Carola Winnie is the founder of Madras Makers, that a lot of you must know. And she's also trusting us and giving us a bit more than 1 month of her busy time to come and immerse herself in the French National Collection. So thank you. I'll finish on this just to say to you that what is important for us is really this community aspect of the project once again. And that we all want to see you in Paris, and we hope also to open this conversation on how this dialogue should come to India as a second chapter, because this is the idea, is to bring back the show in India in 2027. Why not in Mumbai? I think that would make a lot of sense, personally.
Thank you.
Can we please have a big round of applause? Thank you.